Topic for this month is future history of now, when, and then. But before I have a conversation about our topic, I ask that you bear with me for a moment because I would like to dedicate whatever I say today to a longtime guidance family member in the name of Mary L. Parker. Over the years, and I can't even remember because I lose track of time, how many years I've been speaking with you at Guidance Church. But for all of those years, all of you have made me feel very welcome and appreciated whenever I'm with you. And some of you have actually gone out of your way to make me feel extra special. And Mary L. Parker is one of those people. I met her a few years back when she deemed me inappropriately dressed at a church function. I thought I was going to a jazz concert at a church, but she reminded me that I was in a church and I had no business with short pants on. I guess she saw that I needed some guidance, no pun intended. So she adopted me. Later on, she told me that she wasn't always a church-going person. But when she heard Dr. Daniel the Dean Morgan, she decided then that guidance membership was in her future. And right now, her dedication and service is a part of your church's history. She told me she was looking for a minister, somebody that she could talk to and make sure she was on the right track whenever she felt a need. But as Mary L. Parker would do, she didn't ask me to be that person. She told me that I was that person. As I always remind you, I look forward to spending time with my guidance family. And I don't use that word family lightly. I appreciate all the love that I get from the members of this church. But one of the elements that makes our time together special is the profound and thought-provoking topics provided by our ecclesiastical leader, Dr. Clara Ma Mosley. The opportunity to craft a message that is relatable and understood gives me as much joy as I have in presenting it to you. That being said, after today's message, there are those of you who probably think Reverend Jerrold is a little off his rocker sometime. But after I finish talking to you today, you'll probably be convinced of that fact. So our topic, future history of now, when and then. When I got the text and I looked at the topic, the first thing that came to my mind was future history. What happens now will become history the moment it occurs. When and then gave me the notion that when we have an experience, it then represents our reflections of the past as well as our perceptions of our future. These thoughts is what came to my mind when I looked at the topic. And just when I thought I might be on to something, Reverend Pickens reminded me of something that Dr. Coco Welton and Dr. Maisha Hazard proclaimed 20-some years ago at the Mariah Institute of Creative Intelligence when they said, we exist on many frequencies at the same time. Our eternal lifetime of expressions are determined by the channel we spiritually tune into. You know, I spent most of my adult life working in media sales and advertisement creation. But I'm still fascinated to this day on the distribution of those ideas in the form of television, radio, and now social media and the internet. How we have the ability to tune into a desired channel where we get sound and or picture that comes out of what appears to be nothing, thin air. From nothing comes an idea that can't be seen or touched. Yet, your radio, your TV, your computer can deliver hundreds of images from hundreds of frequencies at the same time. Every station we tune into broadcasts a thought that can't be experienced until we make the right connection. Everything you can think of can be accessed. Everything God manifested in mind will be experienced when you spiritually tune in. There's nothing that is going to happen. Creation is over and done. All anyone can imagine is available now. The future, our evolution upward, is determined by how much of God's given power we envision, we embrace, and we demonstrate now. Way back when, we tuned into the mind of God that expressed an idea as the horse and buggy for transportation, that expressed an idea of a telegraph for communication, that expressed an idea of prime beef being an ideal meal for consumption. Then, in the same moment, it manifested a supersonic jet for air travel, the internet for communication, and the Beyond Burger for a meal. All appeared at the right time, the moment our level of understanding and comprehension brought it into manifestation. You see, we're all old enough to remember the original Star Trek when they said, "Beam me up, Scotty." What was science fiction then is scientific fact today. Scientifically, we know that there's one power, that this one power is an unlimited expression. As we used to say back at the Institute, this thing is big. As enormous as it is, all of it exists in the same space and time. Religiously, we proclaim God by several names as this supreme power. Yet we succumb to an alter ego that is contrary to that power. We worship an all-powerful God. Then we say, the devil made me do it. Metaphysically, we claim there's only one power, and that power is my life right now. Yet sometimes, metaphysicians, we dwell in the past and worry about the future. We focus too much attention on the finite worldly things. Spiritually, we know that we are the sum total of what we think, speak, and believe. We experience everything that the collective consciousness holds in mind. We must use our imagination to look ahead to express more. We only look back to learn and to know and to understand more. And when we focus on the now, then we experience and appreciate the result. Our connection, our ability to tune in, our ability to move from one dimension to a different frequency requires an awakening to a spiritual consciousness. It requires us to develop an unwavering faith. It requires us to activate an unlimited imagination. It requires us to express divine will and understanding. It requires us to use the intuitive knowing and discernment. It requires us to connect with that perfect idea of love and wisdom that gave birth to the Christ mind. Then we can rest in our spiritual truth. You see, the same steps that God used to create everything, we can use those steps to experience all things. You know, I always liken the omniscient, the omnipotent, and omnipresent power of God to electricity. Electrical currents that can be accessed at various frequencies. You see, electricity is a power that will provide us with any and everything that we need to live and exist in this plane of existence. But electricity has no idea whether it's lighting your home or shocking you to death. This power that produces things, this power that gives us access to things, is based on how we connect to it and how we use it. One of my teachers and mentors, Reverend of mine, came to us and reminded us that our connection can only be made through prayer and meditation. He told us that time is simply a measure of experiences in eternity. He confirmed that what we experience, what we have experienced, and what we will experience all happens at the same time. Our connection to the infinite, our ability to express the essence of God comes through prayer. Prayer unites us with spiritual realizations we experienced in the past and will experience in the future. But he reminded us that prayer only operates in the now. Yes, prayer brings the future, the past, and the present into clear view. As the preacher used to say back at Miracle Baptist Church, prayer changes things. Prayer can change anything and everything by bringing the desired experience into manifestation or by changing your understanding of the experience that you have. Prayer does not change, cannot change, and will not change the infinite power of God. Prayer can't change the law of God, but prayer can change the mind of the one praying. Prayer can change the frequency that you're tuned into. Our minds are the unlimited transmitter and elite transformer. It is the initiator and the regulator of our spiritual ideas. Our thoughts enhance or decrease our godly expression. Prayer doesn't change what we become, it changes our perception of what we are. It doesn't take us to a new place, it returns us to the original place. Our concept of physical image is derived from a spiritual feeling. What we manifested then, what we look forward to when and experience now depends on our feeling nature, our imaginative power, neither of which can be confined to space or time. Man uses time to measure his steps to a destination that he'll never reach because God has no clock and the end of time will never come. While we count our days on this earth, while we fight tooth and nail to stay here, when we move from this expression, we don't go anywhere in the form of physical distance. We just step into another frequency. Our friend Mary L. Parker and all of you who have lost loved ones that have made their transition are as close to you now as the power of your imagination. They are as live today as they've ever been, as they ever will be. Now, don't get me wrong. I love this life that I'm living. But I believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that the next expression will be and must be greater than this one. I didn't say better. I said greater, more expansive than this one. I believe that every moment and every movement of God is a part of our future history of now, when, and then. Our spiritual reading from Swedenborg reminds us that the Son of Heaven, which is the Lord, does not by means of revolutions and progressions cause their days and years as the Son of the world appears to do. And therefore, in the heavens, there is perpetual light, as well as a perpetual spring. And consequently, times are not fixed, stated, or measurable. Since then, periods of time are also varied according to the states and the affections and thoughts derived from them. For they are short and contracted when affections are gratified, but long and protracted in the opposite case. Therefore, the angels have no idea of time derived from appearances, but an idea of states derived from the origin of those appearances. You see, when Swedenborg wrote about spaces and times in the heaven, he was talking about a heavenly consciousness, a kingdom of mind, body, and affairs, a state of mind that is in harmony with God. He wasn't talking about space as a form of distance. He was talking about space as a frame of mind that gives an appearance of closeness or can give an appearance of separation. Similarly, time is the progression of our mental state that causes our life experiences. When he uses the term states, he's referring to our feeling and our knowing. He's referring to our affections and our thoughts, such as love and wisdom. The reading tells us that the Son of Heaven is a spiritual light, and that the law of God, which is the Lord that gives life to all things. He says it's not the revolution of a physical object, but the perpetual spiritual light that is always revealing something new that can't be measured. Time, in a spiritual sense, represents the movements in eternity that we physically and mentally respond to the angels as spiritual ideas. The higher states of consciousness have no connection with physical appearance or man's concept of time. You see, he told us that time is short when we feel a sense of closeness and when our thoughts are in line with spiritual truth. But when states of fear and doubt prevail, the distance lengthens and time stands still. That's why our divine ideas have no appointed time to manifest as your prayers answered. But when your state of mind is the Christ mind, when your state of mind is the origin of all creation, when your state of mind you can experience your future. In that state of mind, you can tune in to your past and present at any time. You see, when we limit God with man's perception of time, we deny its omniscience, its omnipotence, and omnipresence. The Christ mind is the mind that creates. The Christ mind is the mind that not only creates, but became all that there is. It's a power that mankind has always been aware of, yet has issues tuning into. The spiritually enlightened continue to profess that this mind, this Messiah is coming. And then once it comes, it will return again. We have never stopped proclaiming that the day would come when we would tune in to our eternal existence. The coming of Jesus is that moment when you recognize his omnipotence. It's the instant you unite with his omnipresence. It's the second that you realize his omniscient power. The Christ mind is simply the mind of God in man. The mind of man that taps into its power. The mind of man that is one with its presence. The mind of man that realizes its unlimited ability. Our Bible reading comes from the book of Daniel, chapter 9. You see, Daniel was a man of integrity. He was a man of spiritual insight. He had evolved to a space where all of his judgments were based on spiritual principles. He became receptive to the higher self within. He gained superior wisdom and understanding, which produced in him a sense of fearlessness. That fearlessness allowed him to overcome the lion. The lion represents our undisciplined nature of the natural man. And his weapon that he used to overcome that undisciplined nature was prayer and meditation. He proved our higher thoughts will render our violent nature helpless. Those higher thoughts in the form of Gabriel came to him and offered him this suggestion as it reads in the Lamsa version. He said, "Yea, while I was speaking in prayer, the man Gabriel, who I had seen in a vision before, came from heaven, flying swiftly and drew near, and at the time of the evening sacrifice. And he came and talked to me and said to me, 'O Daniel, I now come forth to instruct you so that you might understand. At the beginning of your prayer, the word came forth, and I have come to make it known to you. For you are greatly loved. Therefore, discern the matter and understand the vision. 70 times 7 weeks are determined upon your people and upon your holy city, to finish the transgressions and to make an end to sin, for the forgiveness of iniquity, and bring in everlasting righteousness, and to fulfill the vision of the prophets, and to give you the most holy to Messiah. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the word to restore and build Jerusalem to the coming of the Messiah the King shall be 7 times 7 weeks and 62 times 7 weeks. And the people shall return and build Jerusalem, its streets and its broad ways as they end of the appointed times. Daniel got some good news from Gabriel. He allowed the elevated consciousness that is one with God to show him a vision. He saw the good in all things, past, present, and future. The revelation came to him at the appointed time that the degrees of informant are not days and weeks of the time that we are aware of, but they are the wisdom and the understanding, the intuitive knowing and the spiritual intuition that these degrees represent the attributes of the Christ mind. And when we come in and we connect with God, when we tune in through prayer, all things become known and accessible. We're able to look beyond the limited concept of divine substance of space and time and see God as the foundation of all that is good. At the appointed time, 70 times 7. We'll get it together and we'll cease to hold in mind ideas that are contrary to our creative power. We'll learn from our past. We'll make the right choice today and fulfill our spiritual assignment of an everlasting future. We'll welcome Christ into our cities. We'll welcome a state of consciousness that is always fully aware of God. We'll know and stand on our spiritual truth. We'll realize the peace of God's anointing. And we will fulfill the 7 spiritual principles of divine law, which is encompassed in the messages that Jesus revealed to us. At the appointed time, peace and love will prevail. At prayer time, peace and love will prevail. It will be a time of recognition, a time of unification, and a time of realization. You see, this scripture identifies the time it will take for the Messiah to appear in terms of weeks and days. But we've already determined that our time is not God's time. Many theologians interpret those multiples of 7 as 490 years from the evening of Daniel's prayer to the dramatic shift in consciousness that will take place when the truth, the idea of Christ, is born amongst us. When the nature of Jesus becomes a reality, that the movement of God is breathed into the life of all humanity. This spiritual idea became increasingly harder for the undisciplined minds to comprehend and practice. So through a process of unfoldment, from Abraham's faith all the way to Joseph's imagination, the Christ took form as Joshua, and Jesus. He came in to being as a part of our original past. He walked among us and with us in our ever-present now moment. And he continues to come again and again in our everlasting future. His first appearance in consciousness was overshadowed by mental desires of greed and lust. His earthly appearance was rejected. Therefore, his spiritual man had to return in order for him to be accepted as an experience that expresses God's eternal promise. That knowing that knows nothing about physical time and space. You see, the Savior comes when you're ready to receive it. He appears in a twinkling of an eye. That does because he doesn't have far to go. He's always with you, awaiting your call. He doesn't need a cell phone, a tablet, or a computer to be reached. You don't need an 80-inch flat screen to see his face. You don't need the latest Beats headphones to hear his voice. He exists on all frequencies through all space and time. He can be contacted in the silence of your meditation. He can be reached through the vibration of your prayer. He can be acknowledged in the activity of your praise. He came and continues to come to be manifested through the demonstration of your life. I want to leave you with something that I extracted from Ernest Holmes in his writings on the 365 days of our year. Ernest Holmes kind of sums up this package this way. He says, when we commune with the invisible presence within, there certainly we can see the future as clearly as we see the past. He says, when we allow ourselves to be moved By the divine intelligence, we enter into the kingdom of good today, knowing it is accessible at all times. He tells us to sweep away all negativity of the past, that yesterday is no longer here and tomorrow has not arrived. He reminds us that today is a good day, that today is your day, that today is bright with hope, that today is filled with promise, that today is without fear, that the law of God is working through me. That law determines my destiny. I have confidence in the future and enthusiastic about what's ahead. But right now, I accept the fullness of life at this moment. That fullness of life is represented by our future history now, when, and then. God bless you. Have a great Sunday. We speak our word, recognize that there is a power and a presence that permeates throughout this universe, that exists and has always existed. It didn't create as much as it became every expression, every experience that we have. Everything that was made simultaneously. Everything that was represented at the same time. But in its graciousness, it allowed us to evolve at our own pace of understanding. It allowed us to tune in to what we needed to express and experience at that time. And as we grew in faith, as our belief was strengthened, the progression of God's love showed forth as the expressions of our life, empowering us to do things that we never thought we could do before, empowering us to learn from all of our experiences, to apply them directly to our present time, to improve what will happen in our future. This thing is big. This creation has no limits. It is moving through you as you sit. It is all around you as you gaze and then see nothing. But there's a lot going on. The power of God is continuously at work, awaiting our connection to, awaiting us to tap in with a fervent prayer, awaiting us to experience it in the moment of silence and deep meditation, awaiting us to realize that all that we can be and ever want to be, we already are. Just tune in and know that you are God in expression. So.